All right, welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, April 15th edition. We have Lance Sexton and Katie Witsucky. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Tired, Joe.
Tired and busy. Yeah.
13 and a half hours of PPP yesterday and already about 5 today and probably another 8 or 9 after I finish today.
Well, we greatly appreciate your time. I know how valuable it is. So let's get into it. We have one poll question today, and it's simply on how successful you guys are doing this. How many PPP loans has your lending institution submitted to ETRAM?
Joe, our institution is way over 1,000.
Way over 1,000. Okay.
Way over 1,000.
Interesting results. Let's put them up. It's 25% all over the board. So
It is.
you got some people over 1,000, and then people aren't doing any of them. What do you think about that, Lance?
Well, I'm not surprised. Most of your institutions that have an electronic platform for submission probably have larger numbers. We're a multi-state bank. We're a regional bank, so we have applications from a number of states. Some of the banks in our similar size range that I've talked to have similar numbers of applications, and we've got a wide variety of participant banks on here. So, for a small community bank to do 50 or 60, that may be just as impactful as a regional bank doing 6,000.
Yeah. We're gonna head back to this, Katie, but I want to show you these numbers that we got yesterday. It seems like there's about 100 billion left in the fund, but Lance, you seem to think you seem to think that is running out today or tomorrow or maybe Friday.
Congress really needs to step up and get something moving fairly quickly. We were talking about this before we came on. Don't know that the money will run out today, but I feel like it may run out. Well, today's Wednesday. Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind it'll all be gone by Friday.
Wow.
And most likely, either it's possible it'll be late today or tomorrow.
And we're going to do a big webinar in an hour on PPP loans, and I was working on the PowerPoint last night. I did the timeline, and it seems like it's a year ago, but it's only the 12th or 13th business day
I was writing the article yesterday. I was writing an article yesterday and looking at just, saying, oh, it was in the first week last week, and I was thinking, no, it wasn't. It's been 2 or 3 weeks at least.
Yeah.
But it really has. It's gone fast.
Katie, go ahead, Lance.
But it's been a week and a half plus a weekend.
Right.
So
yeah.
This is in less than 2 weeks, guys. It's 125 billion a week.
Katie, tell us what was released yesterday. The Federal Reserve issued the interim final rule for the PPP facility. Give us an update on that and tell us how important that is for the next step of this process.
Right. So the interim final rule, we were kind of we got kind of teased last week about this, that they were going to, the Federal Reserve was going to create some kind of facility, and there wasn't a lot of information about it at the time. And on Thursday and Friday, they started issuing some more information about it. And finally, Monday, we got an interim final rule that basically said that it's going to allow banks to exclude from their regulatory capital ratios all PPP loans pledged to this facility at a 0% risk weight for the PPP loans. And those are the primary things that are going to be helpful about this. And there's a great article in the National Law Review about it that kind of just creates this. In fact, that's where we got our little graphic here that just kind of breaks it all down for everybody. And they're, of course, still accepting comments on this through the through the federal portal. So if you think there's something wrong with this, I would encourage people to, issue a comment on it. And there's a term sheet that the Federal Reserve put out as well. So that's also got some information. So I think at this point, it's just breaking it down and trying to understand all of this. But I think it's going to be a very helpful final rule.
And this was fast tracked. It is effective yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though that is a major expansion of, and the Federal Reserve, John Winnick was saying yesterday how important it is for the Federal Reserve to do this. It's historic. It's never been done, right, Lance?
No, this has not been done, and of course, this is a huge relief to all the banks that are participating in the PPP program.
We got a little bit more guidance on from SBA. They've been updating their FAQ sheets every day. I get a couple more questions, and this is on E-Tran and the payroll cost calculation by the lender. Before a lender submits a PPP loan through E-Tran, the lender must have collected the information and certifications contained in the borrower application form, and the lender must have fulfilled its obligations set forth. Lenders who did not understand that these steps are required before the submission to E-Tran need not withdraw applications submitted to E-Tran, but must fulfill lender responsibilities. Lance, how good are your borrowers helping you out with the calculations? Are you requiring them to do everything, or are you helping them out with that, or what's going on?
Yeah, ours is set up in phases. We have an online application. There are reviewers that review the information submitted by the borrower and work with the borrower to get the information correct and compliant, and then it's submitted to a team of GGL specialists who put them in E-Tran. Then it goes, we have different phases. Our bank did an amazing job of setting up a process to efficiently move these through. Now, it's still the payroll information and the certification of the payroll information is still on the borrower. You as a bank have to make sure you collect the appropriate information and double check. But the borrower is certifying that information is correct.
And Katie, talk about this. What's the Main Street Lending Program, the new facility? This is going back to Treasury, right?
Mm. So these are going to be 4-year loans, and I think you pretty much have all the information right there. There's some great term sheets available and everything like that. And we'll probably get an article out about this to get more details in probably a couple days here.
Okay. Let's do some questions, Lance. How are the lending institutions reporting actual loans funded to the SBA to let them know we dispersed the funds? Do you know?
I'm not 100% certain. I would feel like that would be via the 1502 report that we do on a month.
Coleman open? Are you sending that at the end of the month, or are you reporting to them, or what's going on?
I don't know 100% for certain, Joe. When I was at a small community bank, I actually was involved in reviewing and approving for submission the 1502 report. This institution I'm at now is much larger. We have a department in another state that prepares our 1502 reports, but I cannot imagine, even though Coleman is not open, they have to be working remotely, and the reports have to still be going in and the information going to SBA. And I would have to, surely that is automated, but these PPP loans, I've not heard otherwise, so I would assume they're going to be reported on the 1502 report just like other SBA loans. And if somebody knows differently, please let me know.
This is a really hot topic right now on sole proprietorships and contractors. Have you done any of those applications yet?
Yeah. In fact, I did half a dozen of them this morning.
Okay. So they are accepting them and they are helping those guys out.
Yeah, the sole proprietor contractor applications, you can now process those. in my view, they're slightly more challenging, especially in terms of the payroll calculation. Again, you're going to have to rely some on the borrower for providing accurate and correct information. You're going to need, if it's an independent contractor, copies of the 1099s. If it's a sole proprietor, you're going to need a copy of their tax return that includes a Schedule C to support the payroll. When I have a corporation, an LLC, the documentation I'm seeing is pretty standard and pretty easy to dig through. The sole proprietors are a little more challenged. I think the other thing you're going to find in E-Tran when you're putting a sole proprietor's loan in, E-Tran wants a business and a principal, and the business has to have taxpayer ID. Well, some of the sole proprietors will not have a federal taxpayer ID. They use their Social Security. They do have a federal taxpayer ID, but not the standard one that a business would get. They have a Social Security number. And when you're putting a sole proprietor loan into E-Tran, you've got to put in a business ID. Well, what you do is you just put the Social Security number in the same format as the business ID if they do not have a separate federal taxpayer ID. And then, of course, you're going to put in the principal information with Social Security number as well. Another thing that kicks up frequently, sometimes it's been kind of sometimes on a sole proprietor, after you put the principal information, it pops up a separate screen about federal government financing, even when the borrower certifies that they have not had any in terms of SBA loans or other federal loans. And basically, you can just go ahead and hit submit on that and then validate. Those of you putting them in E-Tran, validates the key. If you click validate and it says no errors, you're ready to submit. But the sole proprietor loans, when you're putting them in E-Tran, there's a couple little tricks to getting them through.
Ian asked a great question. I know you've been consumed with PPP, but your current SBA 7A loans, any word on the 6 months worth of payments? Do you have people working on that at Bank UK?
Yeah, we have a separate team. In fact, we got ahead of this before we started processing PPP loans. All existing SBA borrowers, of course, will have 6 months worth of payments made for them on their SBA loans by SBA. Those are the payments that occur after March 27th, 2020. My assumption is when you send your 1502 report at the 1st of April, again, I'm not doing 1502 reports, but when you send your 1502 reports in, they capture the information, and the law says SBA is supposed to send the money to the bank within 30 days. So my expectation is the bank will start seeing that payment money from their existing loan portfolio probably around the 1st of May.
And this is a great question from John. What is the process for banks to start collecting the fees from SBA after the PPP loans have been funded?
That's a great question. I assume it's going to be automatic because your next 1502 report is going to have a tremendous number, or however the report works. Again, I'm assuming it's the 1502 report will have a tremendous number of PPP loans that are fully dispersed. And once the loan is dispersed, SBA then will send the fees. My expectation is your 1502 in May, or if there's some other alternative, but I'm still thinking it's the 1502 will show most of these loans fully dispersed, and SBA will send the fee income shortly thereafter.
One last question, Lance. The procedure, the process of forgiveness of debt, when do we start that, and how does that work?
Well, the 8-week period starts when the loan is dispersed. And most institutions are dispersing the loans in a lump sum when they close it. You close the loan, you book the loan, you fund the loan. And that's why so many institutions, I've seen a lot of grumbling across the United States about banks that say we will only do PPP loans for our customers. There's two absolute truths that come to play there. One of the challenges with PPP fraud will be not knowing your customer. And that's why you find banks saying we'll only do them for our customers, because we already know, we already have documentation in our files. We already, have IDs. We already have accounts set up with those customers. It also helps facilitate funding the PPP loans quicker. Once a loan books at our institution, the funds immediately go into an account they have at our institution. The other reason a lot of institutions have only decided to do them primarily for their customers is, you open up the valve and you have more applications than you could possibly. I mean, we have hundreds of people at our institution working on the PPP project, and we're doing a great job, and we have a great platform of processing it. And, I wish my IT people and some of our people who put it together could hear this, but it's an amazing system. But we have so many applications that, yesterday I did 50, more than 50. Just think about that, guys. In a normal 8-hour day, I'm processing at least 6 SBA loans per hour. Now I work more than 8 hours to do my 50 plus deals, but I think another reason a lot of banks said just our customers is the number of applications they got, being able to process them. Like immediately after the show, I'm going to rush back and work till 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, trying to get as many as I can into the system, just because I'm afraid it's going to run out of money.
Well, before you get back, you got to do a webinar with us, Lance. And it's interesting you talk about fraud. Katie is going to be busy for a while. Fortunately, this is just going to be a part of the reality of the situation. But hopefully, you guys are all taking the correct measures to avoid that.
I think one thing, Joe, to point out, the institutions that are doing the PPP loans for their customers, there'll be less fraud in that subset of PPP than if I've got somebody in a state that we don't even do business, that doesn't have a relationship with our bank. That's where there's the potential for fraud, because you don't know your customer. And that's such an important part of banking today, is knowing your customer.
Well, Lance, we always appreciate the time you spend with us, and we look forward to your webinar. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a detailed analysis on everything that's been going on, and you still time to log in. If you just send me an email, I'll send you the login instructions, and we'll get you on the call. Katie, always a pleasure. Lance, always a pleasure. You guys have a good day. We'll see you in a bit.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.